for that. But we are excited to have you here tonight. I feel honored to present to you our moderator for this session, who is Ms. Taylor Flake, who is the proud and very well capable president of Christian Brothers University. So ladies and gentlemen, your moderator for this evening, Ms. Taylor Flake.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Are you all excited to be here tonight? Okay, so I want to welcome everybody to tonight's town hall meeting. I expect that we're going to have a great conversation, some good dialogue amongst the young generation that's ready to take on the movement. As Ms. Daphne said, my name is Taylor Flake. I'm a senior history major at Christian Brothers University, and I'm the president of CBU's NAACP chapter. I'm going to allow the panelists to introduce themselves and tell us your name, where you're from, and what you do.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, sir.
I'm Lieutenant Tyrone Curry. I'm currently serving as the supervisor for our COP unit, which stands for the Memphis Police Department Community Outreach Program. I've been on the job 25 years. I'm a happily married young man with 2 grown sons. Thank God they gone. Actually, this is my alma mater. I graduated from the University of Memphis in 1988 with a degree in military science and criminal justice. And on the Memphis Police Department, I served as a gang specialist, as a prevention and intervention specialist, and also as a community police officer, or I like to call myself the guru of community policing in Memphis. And I also developed several mentoring programs brought that to the Memphis Police Department. And
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Good evening. Thank you for having me first and foremost. My name is Jordan Johnson. I attend Lane College. I've been in NAACP at our school for 2 years now. I'm a mass comm major, and I'm about to graduate in September, so I'm excited for that. And thank you for having me once again.
My name is Harold Carter, former police officer in the city of Jackson, Metro Narcotics Advice Unit, commander, and served in the military during the Vietnam era. Elected to the county commission for a couple of terms, president of Jackson County Commission, the NAACP. Work with the Boys and Girls Club, United Way, and the Imagination Library. Very well connected to the community, and I'm just glad to be of your service tonight.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to let you all know that our State Youth and College Division President, Mr. David Johnson, he is on his way. He'll be here shortly, and that's what the MPC is for. So whenever he gets here, he'll just hop right in. So tonight, we're going to engage in a discussion on law enforcement in the community and how we can work together to make our community safe and strong. So if anybody has any questions throughout the panel, just write them down on your note card and get them to Ms. Daphne, and then she'll get them up here so we can get them asked. Okay, and I'll just start with the first question to Lieutenant Tyrone Curry. What is the proper protocol when a civilian is stopped by law enforcement? Hypothetically, if the driver's window is inoperable, how should law enforcement handle the situation? Or how should the driver handle the situation?
first of all, when you stop by a law enforcement officer, keep your hands on the steering wheel. Do not make any inadvertent movements. Follow his instructions. And if your window does not come down, trust me, he will approach your car. Just make sure your hands are in right, what's it, 2 and 10 position, and he will not, react to any sudden movement. And I understand a lot of citizens and civilians do not understand but you're trained, you don't know what you're gonna encounter as a law enforcement officer. So your mind is focused on every stop is a danger. And when someone, especially if you're from different cultures or different backgrounds, you might react to certain people a different kind of way. So first of all, follow their instructions, make sure, don't reach for your wallet, and don't go in the glove compartment, because I've stopped several people. They go to their glove compartment where they keep their driver's license. Do not do that. Just stay still, keep your hands, and don't be frightened by it, you know. And I know it's easier said than done, especially what's going on now. But just, first of all, just make sure your hands are visible. They're trained to watch hands and eyes. And when you get to moving, and some people, I mean, tolerance level is not as slow as others. So, and just follow their instructions. And in most cases, you should be okay, but there is no guarantee because police officers need training as well.
Amen.
So I just have a follow-up question to that. So say I'm pulled over because I'm speeding or my tail light is out or something like that. What is a normal interaction with an officer? Say you turn your lights on, I pull over, and I'm sitting with my hands at 10 and 2. Like, how is it supposed to go?
Oh, you sitting at 10 to 2. He will either get on the PA system and give you instruction. Either, hey ma'am, come back to my car, or put your hands on the steering wheel, or he will approach your car. You just stop, put your hands on the steering wheel, and wait for his instruction. Do not reach for your purse, do not reach for your wallet. Just wait on him to give you instruction. And it's just that simple. There's nothing else you can do. Just turn, and he will let you know, well, he should let you know why he stopped you. Either you were speeding or your tail light is out. And do not get into a verbal altercation with the police. You will not win on the street, okay? There are mechanisms in place, procedures in place. If you've been treated disrespectfully, you can file a complaint in the internal affairs. Every department has a complaint unit or internal affairs unit, and file your complaint there. But to engage in an argument, I didn't do this, why are you stopping me? Why aren't you arresting some burglars or robbers and all that stuff? That is not the way to go. Just follow his instruction. If he gives you a ticket, you know, you can contest the ticket in court, but do not, and the biggest problem we have as citizens is getting into a confrontation with the police officer on the street. You will not win that fight.
Thank you. Mr. Carter,
Yes, ma'am.
in your opinion, how can the African American community work with law enforcement to improve race relations?
One of the things is transparency. I think we're dealing with situations right now that apparently there's some departments that doesn't like to open up to allow the community to look in and see what's under the hood. There has to be more transparency. There has to be more interaction from the local community and getting involved.
TNSC in the house.
Hi, guys. Glad you were for me. Thank you. But it has to be more community involvement, paying attention to who you place in the position of police chief. Your mayors or your city councils, the city makes those appointments, and you have to be very careful that you make sure that they're picking the right person with the right temperament, that he has respect of his peers, and that they can command a unit or department that is worthy of protecting the community. But we have to have more involvement with the police procedures in terms of making sure that they're doing everything that they need to do in the right way. You need to support them, and they need to support you. They're there to serve you. You are their bosses, and they need to understand that they serve you and not each other. So I think more transparency and making sure that citizens do have an opportunity to review the policies and procedures of the police department and stay on top of it.
Okay, Ms. Johnson. Have you ever been stopped or pulled over by the police? Where did it happen? And explain how you felt and what was the outcome.
Well, I recently just purchased my car like a year ago, like around last fall, around this time, I had got pulled over. I wasn't scared or anything. I was content because it was my first time getting pulled over. I know I didn't do anything wrong, so I knew he was gonna ask me about my license plate because it was in my window and my window was tinted. So I knew like when he come up closer to me, he would see that it was in my window because he probably thought that I didn't have a license plate at all. So he just told me to make sure I put it somewhere where he could see it, so I won't get like in trouble or pulled over again. So I really didn't expect anything negative to come out of it because I already knew what he was coming to me for and about. So that was my experience with an officer.
Okay. Lieutenant Curry. Research has indicated that unconscious racial bias often impacts human behavior. What can law enforcement do in terms of training, educating, or cultivating an internal culture to combat the effect of unconscious racial bias so that it does not affect how police enforce the law?
Oh, that's a good and long question. And I deal with it every day. First of all, every department, police department, needs to go through training. And a lot of these incidents, these horrific incidents that you're seeing around the country are happening because their officers have not been trained. They have not been trained in cultural diversity, sensitivity, all those things. And as my colleague on the panel here stated, that if you have a lack of training, a lack of transparency, and folk that are not passionate in leadership positions, whether that's in politics or what have you, you're gonna have that department reflect that. And someone told me years ago that attitudes are a reflection of leadership. If you have poor or discriminatory leadership, the people that follow you will often carry out those type of acts or show those type of signs as a department that has not been trained. So training is the key. And the Bible tells us that our people will perish from a lack of knowledge. And that knowledge is just not only in institutional knowledge in school, it's knowledge of self, knowledge of how you treat people, knowledge of attitude, personality. So the key is get more training and start interacting with people. And if we start interacting with different cultures, different races, we'll find out that we have more in common than we do dislike or not in common. So, and build relationships and don't be afraid of people. And the media also gives us a perception that some people who have not been trained, they will think that perception is reality when it's far from the truth. And they build their truth up about certain people without even having the opportunity to know them or get to know them. I hope that answered your question.
That's great answer.
Does anybody else have a response to that? Or?
No, I think the lieutenant is right. We have to build trust within our communities. It works both ways, from the community to the police and the police to the community. One of the things that when I worked in Seattle, there was a initiative called community policing that was started. And it worked out well with 5 initial cities across the country where they brought that concept into the police departments across the nation. However, in a lot of police departments where we had a book that was probably about 1.5 inches thick, unfortunately most departments only adopted it about maybe a few chapters of it. There's more to community policing than what has been done, and I think they need to expose that to the general public and to seek help. At the same time, we should be knowledgeable enough about it that we know that everybody has a responsibility as far as crime reduction. And everybody has a responsibility not only to support law enforcement, but law enforcement has a responsibility to keep you safe and to make sure that they are knowledgeable about what laws are available and what the community looks like. In other words, being familiar with the culture of the community in which they're serving.
Thank you. So I have a question from the floor. It says, how can we get our young people to understand that when we are marching in protest that vandalizing property is not solving the problem or helping the situation. For anyone.
Okay.
Yeah, for anyone. No, anyone of you guys.
Okay. I was confused. Okay. Some people know what they want to do when they go out to protest, or like some people I know are just tired of it, but I don't think that they don't know that their own community is not the place to go to solve a problem. Even someone else's community is not the place to go to solve the problem of what's going on right now. And I think, like, if you're educated enough, you know what to do and what not to do when you're in that situation. So it's about that person. It's not solely about the Black Lives Matter protesters. It's just some people just want to go out and think it's fun to vandalize and don't have anything else to do, and think that that's going to solve a problem or it's going to fix something when it's not. It's just going to make things worse. So I think we just need to educate each other more. And if you see somebody, if you're out there with them, if you just so happen to be out there with them, like, just calm it down. Like, I know you don't want to get involved with it, but like, try to get somebody to like say, hey, like, don't do that. It's not going to solve the problem at all. So that's what I think we should do. Just educate each other and step in when you see that problem occurring out there.
Yeah, I think one of the issues with our generation is that sometimes as leaders, we don't effectively communicate the vision, like our end goal. So if we're all on the same page, then we're not going to divert from the plan because we know we want it. We know what the end goal is going to be. So I think that that's something that we as leaders should always strive to do, no matter what we're doing, protesting, community service, any type of campus outreach. Make sure the vision is translated clear and effective. And if you're not down with the vision, you can't be with us because we're trying to get somewhere.
You know, one of the things that's so very important, you hit it, Mr. President, is that oftentimes we're marching for a good cause because of something that has happened in our community that deserves our attention. But when someone becomes a distraction, in other words, throw a brick in a window or try to loot a store, then you forget about the message that you were started on, because now the media is taking over that brick going through that store and all the concentration is on that instead of what the message that you was marching in the first place. So you're exactly right. You know, everybody needs to be on the same page and understand where we are, what we're doing and why we're doing it, so there's no distraction from the subject matter.
I actually agree with protest, but peaceful protesting. And I understand, you know, violence is the message of the unheard. But there are ways you can get your message heard. Even though, I mean, the example of the bridge, I don't agree with them blocking the bridge because we had people that were trying to get to the hospital, and that wasn't good. You know, it could have been your family member, my family member. I would have, if I were going to protest with direct action, and it was direct action without violence or vandalism. However, we really need to think about the strategies and what we're going to protest, that it does not put the very ones that we love in danger. And but in the civil rights movement, there were young people. There were young people that were protesting. I mean, they sat down, they marched, but Martin Luther King always believed in non-violence or non-existence. And as the earlier panelists stated, that if you distract them from your cause will not be heard as loud as if it were done peacefully. But direct action, y'all, we're smart people, and we can come up with ways that we can protest. And I give a quick example. For instance, with the police department, when their benefits got cut as first responders, they created this method called the blue flu.
Right.
No, and everybody knows you need the first responders, police and fire, to protect and keep your city safe. And if you don't think you need them, try going 2 days without them. And the whole city or town will cave itself with those folks who are going to commit crimes that will destroy property or injure individuals. Otherwise, it will make your job just that much
harder to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, so Mr. Carter, from your past experience in law enforcement, was your level of caution or fear more when you pulled over civilians of color versus white citizens? Explain.
The answer is no, because if you're trained and trained correctly and you're doing the job you're supposed to, you treat everybody equally. Unfortunately, these days and times, there's this fear of people of color. You have officers that unfortunately do not get that cultural training that they need to get. And as a consequence, when they stop, oftentimes black males, they have a heightened sense of danger. So they're ready from Jump Street to use maximum force. On the other hand, where there's a white male, normally it's not the same type of reaction. But a lot of this is speared on because our culture of not having diversity within our departments and not making sure that those officers are trained well cross-culturally and to make sure they have the right temperament for the job. Police officers are volunteers. You volunteer to take this job, and that job has consequences, just like you're in the military. You're subject to go the next day into a hot zone, a military zone. Well, your police officers the same way. They go where the danger is to protect the citizen. And when you make distinctions between one area of town versus another, or one individual because of their skin color, because of their religion, or because of their culture in general, then we're making a mistake. The real issues are in police departments. You have to have diversity. You hire the right people with the right temperament. You train them well, and you monitor or supervise them well. Now, that shouldn't be a too difficult task, but unfortunately, in our days and time in policing, you've got everybody that think they want to carry a gun. And police officer's job is difficult and it's hard. It's not meant for everybody. But there's a lot of people that want to be. And unfortunately, you get a lot of wannabes, and they get the John Wayne effect, as we call it back in the day during the training. And they want to be the big guy on the block, and they have a gun to prove it. And obviously, with the mass shooting, with the shootings that we've had, and the availability of guns, we have laws that's created by your state legislature that you vote for, that allows guns in cars, guns in bars, guns in schools, guns in churches, guns in parks, guns all over the place. And we know that 40% or more of our people that we're locked up are in some way mentally deficient. And police officers are not psychiatrists. They're not parents. They can't approve a budget for the school system. But they're caught in the middle of all of this. They don't know which way to get out, and so fear takes them over. And so unfortunately, they make wrong decisions because they shouldn't be there, put in that position in the first place.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions?
Right on card, I can't say it out loud.
We prefer that you write it on a card if you can, because we know this is a question. We don't want you to make a lot of comments, but if
Amen,
we want you to put it on the card for us, please. Thank you.
Yes.
Look right out for you.
So I have a question for anyone to respond to. Do you think that the media's focus on the negative is playing a role in the current climate?
I most definitely think so. Like the panelist was saying, they focus on the negative because they're looking for a story to build somehow, because when you're shooting a story, you're looking for the most interesting thing you can find. So if we're protesting or something and something break out on the other side, like somebody's fighting or, you know, a brick being thrown into a window, like they're gonna look for that to put it in. And then sometimes like they have an agenda, like some certain news stations and you know, channels have a different agenda, like is to paint a certain type of person in a light that is negative. So I do think the media have an effect on how we look at certain things.
by what they decide to put on and what they find to make us see in a certain way.
Okay, so I have another question. What steps can the Black community take to build a positive and sustainable relationship with the MPD?
That you ask. First step is to start policing at your house. Start training and talking to your children. And then go to your police station. There's a police station, I know in Memphis, in every community. Go there, meet the officers that ride in your particular neighborhood. Each officer is assigned what we call a ward. And oftentimes they ride that same area every day. And police officers spend more time in their community than they do at home. And they're supposed to provide safety and look out for any criminals who are trying to wreak havoc on the community. So if I got someone in my neighborhood all the time while I'm at work, while I'm asleep, I would meet them.
Right.
And invite them over for coffee, breakfast, lunch, or what have you. And you'll be surprised, they'll spend more time at your particular house. Oh, that's Mr. or Mrs. Johnson's house. They're at work, so let me go by there. And everybody wants to be appreciated. And so I think if you go and show some appreciation to the precinct, and we're experiencing that now. We get so much food, people bring us food, and I think Memphis is a very unique police department. First of all, we're a department of this size, we're one of the few that has majority African American in leadership position on the Memphis Police Department. We're one of the few, I don't care, even though the city might be majority African American, most of the time your department is still majority white.
That's right.
And that didn't just coincidentally happen because Memphis is 65, 69%, something like that, African American. There were lawsuits filed starting in the early 70s demanding that the city have more African American police officers in this department because they were experiencing, a lot of the community were experiencing heavy hands by some of our white police officers. And that went on for many, many years. And in 2004, the Afro-American Police Association, which I was president at that particular time, filed a federal lawsuit, and we took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and to make the city hire more African-American police officers, especially in management, so it will reflect the community that they serve. And it's nothing against any other race or what have you, but it tends to, the particular race you belong to and that you're policing, those all tend to understand those values and more. Until we get to a place where different races start understanding each other, we're gonna have that type of background that will reflect the community that we serve. And so, but with that said, the federal lawsuit made the city hire more African Americans on its police department. That's why you do not see the level of violence against the citizens from the Memphis Police Department that you do across the nation. It was no coincidence when you saw our Director Rollins go among 2,000 protesters and walk them down peacefully.
That's right.
That was done because we invested in it. And we've been doing, we take a message from the gang leaders, the gang members, feed, protect our communities, and they have become part of the family. We've been giving away backpacks, feeding the hungry for over 30 years. And now, we've been feeding their grandchildren, great-grandchildren, been looking after them, giving them school supplies, and it has paid off. And that was the test to show that it has paid off. No one is gonna, you'll have individuals do stuff, but you will not have violent protests against your police officers like you've been experiencing in other cities. Now the circumstances were there But because we invest in the community so heavily, they know, there's no way you're gonna go tell Ms. Johnson that Lieutenant Curry is a bad guy and he hates black folks. And our white officer, I mean, they're very unique too. They've been doing very well because they built a relationship. Because the leadership, who happens to be African American, will not tolerate you wreaking havoc on those folk that you serve. Because people in the community are my relatives, my family, my friends. So what would I look like going and reaping havoc, or let someone else reap havoc on those people? I know it's a long story, but I'm passionate about it. I thought it was relevant.
And again, I too commend the police chief for what they did on the bridge. It was policing the way it should have been. And I think most comments on a national level agreed with that, but there were some that didn't agree with it at all. But those are the issues that we face every day. Diversity is the key to a successful police department. We've got a city in Jackson that's 57% African American, but the police department is 74% white. That has to change. One of the things that's also an issue, and as I mentioned before, police departments can't solve your budget problem at your school board. They can't solve the problem of putting enough parks in, etc. They only do a certain thing well. Allow them to do their job. But what the other problem has always been is that when I was on the police department, a lot of things happened with how civilian policymakers, your city council, your mayors, what they did, decision that they made, reflected on in the police department. You didn't have enough money to cover some of those benevolent things that you're trying to do. You didn't have a chance to cover them. You didn't have enough money to hire the right people, to equip them with the right equipment, and to train them well. That's an issue. The issues, a lot of times, is created by those in leadership position at the city council and legislative level. Stand Your Ground was a law that was created by legislators. Stand Your Ground is a law that got Trayvon Martin killed. Because I didn't have to have, all I needed was a threat from you, or seemingly a threat from you, and I can use maximum force with a weapon. That's how the gentleman got away with it. The bar is too high for the police department to really change a lot of culture in our community, because they don't make that decision. They just enforce what's being dictated to them by law. That's why voting is important. You vote the right people in to make the right decisions, so you don't create these types of laws that impact our community. Poverty is an issue. Police department can't fix poverty, but legislators can. They can't do it. So oftentimes we criticize them for the things that they do when they're really got their hands tied. They can't do no more than what's dictated to them by people above them.
Ms. Love.
President Carter talked about the fact that Tennessee has the same Stand Your Ground law that Florida has. A lot of our young people might not realize that, and it's important that they realize it's the same law. Mm-hmm. And you know, that's a law that we've been lobbying against every year, but it's important that they know that.
I understand. Thank you, President. He's on top of it. What we're dealing with in a lot of cases is our history. Unfortunately, a lot of us don't know history, our history. If you knew our history, you'd know that over 300 and some years of suppression in this society has created the environment that we live in. But as a young person, you may not know that. You only know what's today. If you go back and you reflect on history, this is nothing new.
That's right.
There's always been laws created to keep you from voting. At one time, the Supreme Court agreed that black folks couldn't read. It was against the law to teach you to read. They also agreed that in 1882, about the Dred Scott decision, that you wasn't worthy of being a full person. Now, yes, hundreds of years have passed, but if you look at voter suppression laws, if you look at Stand Your Ground laws, if you look at all those things, you have to have your data so perfect in order to create a defense.
but all they have to do is look at you and assume that you're dangerous. Just because you're large, just because you're dark-skinned, just because you talk differently, or you're from another place.
Mr. Carter.
Yes, ma'am, Dad, now I see your finger twirling, I'm sorry.
You brought up voting quite a bit, and this is for anyone on the panel. We had a question, okay. Election day is coming soon. How can we get young adults of the age of 18 to register to vote and to actually vote?
Well, we're doing this thing at my school where when we have an event, we have our voter registration papers for the residents of Tennessee to fill out if they would like to vote. So we make sure that we have those for them so they can get out and do that. And I think that every school should do that. Like when you guys have an event at your campus, just have those forms out. And then if they don't stay in Tennessee, we will always tell them, okay, when you go home, make sure you register and get your card. So when it's time for the vote, you can have everything set and you'll be ready to vote. So I think that we should get more campuses involved with having those papers out at every event, every school event. And I know, like, we have chapel. I know a lot of schools have chapel on Wednesdays, so we should have those out for them to fill out so we can make sure that everybody is ready to vote for this upcoming election.
Yeah, this is my soapbox. But does anybody know what National Voters Registration Day is? Tuesday, yay! And it's also important, I know, for our college campuses that a lot of times we have people that go to our school that aren't from Tennessee or not Tennessee residents, and they can file for an absentee ballot and vote from the comfort of their own university. One of the unique resources that NAACP has on the website is absentee ballot voting guides for each state. So when you're having your voter registration drives, it would be great if you either printed them off or directed people that are trying to vote to the site to look it up, either that or rockthevote.com. You can look and see if you're already registered or, you know, the dates and stuff for your state. But that's something that we have to do better with, especially college students, because they already say we don't vote, but we have the most issues. So we need to do it.
What about high school students?
Getting them registered to vote?
Like, we have some that's just 18 and graduated, and we have some that just graduated at the age of 17 and they haven't been through the vote.
Yeah, that's an issue as well. I know that when you get your driver's license, you can register to vote that way, but a lot of people don't get their driver's license at 18, or they wait until later and they miss out on the opportunity, so no one is out there and they miss out.
One of the things that we've done in the past is allow units and youth and college groups to go into the schools and, you know, get permission from the board and the superintendent and actually register those people that were going to be 18 prior to the next election. So you can do that. All you got to do is ask permission, and normally the schools will allow you to go in and do that. And we've done some of that, and that's really critical to get, because if you start voting early, you'll vote.
I just wanted to kind of co-sign on what Ms. Sweetlove said. Some of the other units in different states around the country have partnered with their local school districts to, you know, go in and make sure that all of their graduating seniors who are of age get registered. And in fact, I just got a document with 19,000 voter registrations from one county in Florida because the school district partnered. 19,000 registrations.
In the past, with Shelby County schools, there were individual school efforts to get their students registered to be eligible to vote by the voting date. And there were some issues with some schools. So the school board did declare that it was appropriate for the organizations to go in and register voters, so it goes much more smoothly now.
Folks, let me just say this, you know, out of the last couple of elections that we've had, statewide, countywide, those that was eligible to vote, Now, the issue is whether you have a reason to vote, whether or not that compelling reason is enough to energize you to go to the polls and bring others to the poll. As older adults, we can say that voting is important. That's your life. That's your voice. There's a reason why that we have as our mantra, our lives matter, our votes count. If you're not voting, you don't count. Voting is your strength. But we have to know how to use it. And you can only use it if you go vote. Now, the last day for voter registration, I believe, is across the state of Tennessee, is October the 5th. October the 5th. Early voting starts, I believe, October the 11th. 19. So we're within less than 30 days. So the issue is, how are you going to get energized and bring others with you? This is a decision that you're going to have to make individually, whether or not you're going to be part of the solution or you're going to be part of the problem. Because a lot of people are not voting, not only your age, but older adults as well. When you can only get 20-24% out to vote, a lot of people are not voting. So that has to change. That this election is going to be one that you're going to have to live with for the rest of your life.
Does anybody have any suggestions on, or things that they're doing to get their campus or community involved with voting? Yes.
I have a comment that I think it might be very relevant, because I've spoken with young people when it comes to voting, and what I'm have been confronted with, and I think this is an important piece that we miss, we tell our young people who to vote, but we don't tell them who to vote for. They're not getting education in the sense of who to vote for, and they're not very knowledgeable of legislative law. So I think with telling them to vote, we have to encourage them to research the candidates, look at their works, their previous works, look what their platform is about, and then we tell them to, use wisdom by voting, but we can't just tell them to vote if we're not empowering them with knowledge as to who to vote for.
Sure. So she said a lot of what I was going to say. I know at CU we're going to be having a debate night coming up where a professor will represent Trump and a professor will represent Hillary Clinton. And that way students will be able to see what that particular politician stands for. But also, I know it's important to vote during like the presidential election, but there are many more minor elections that like,
voted every one of them.
pay attention to, like
Every one of them.
like Congress and the Senate and like your local politicians. Those are just as important as
Yes.
those that have directly.
Yes, yes, all politics are
vote
local.
all of them.
Exactly. Way to go.
Also, if you want to stand so we can hear it, so everybody can hear you.
Even on October 8th, in the general election, there are going to be candidates aside from the presidential candidates.
That's right.
So it's important for us as NAACP units to lead in educating the members of our community about various initiatives that are going on, in addition to candidates who are running for offices aside from the President of the United States. That's what we've got to do. We have to do a better job, not just of educating young people, but even older people don't always know.
Yeah, I'll share this. I'll never forget my first time voting for the president. I just turned 18. And I remember walking in and I was like, oh, I'm going to vote for Obama. Then after I voted for Obama, there was all this other stuff I had to vote for. And I'm like, okay, so I just pick something. So ever since then, it's always been okay, let me see what's coming up so I know, what I'm prepared for.
It's one of the things, what I love about NAACP youth in college, because it is such a training ground. Because one of the things that we always say is not just go vote, but we say, we educate, we mobilize, and then we get out to vote. We've got that's why you do forums. You need to do local forums. Let me just make an example to you about how critical it is to vote. You heard Ms. Carter say, normally only about 25% of people voted in the last election. Let me just give you an if 5% of the more of the African Americans had voted in the senatorial election when Harold Ford Jr. Ran. We would now have Harold Ford Jr. in the Senate instead of Portland. Only 5% more if you got out. Because the interesting thing is, he had went across this state and he carried little places like outside there by me, like Crockett County, and a lot of them little Farmers County. He carried that stuff. But he did not, he missed the whole thing by 55,000 folks. Less than 5% of what could have happened right here. So when we talk about voting being power, it really is power. It really does make a difference. Why do you think they kept lynching us for so long? To keep us from voting. Why do you think they took the right from my grandfather and land on us years and years ago, right after the turn of the century? Because they used to say you had to have land in order to vote. They took that right away because they knew if they could vote, then they could decide what their own destiny was. So I'm telling you, your destiny is in your hand. But you got to educate yourself so you will know. And like she said, even if the dog catches running, go vote. Because believe it or not, what politicians and leaders do, even planning commissions do, they go look at the roster of who is voted. When you wonder about how some streets get paved and others don't, how some street lights, Lieutenant will tell you, some street lights, if they get blown out, they replace like the next day, folks on that block vote. Look, you know what, I live in a rural area. If I get a hole in my road, it get fixed. Because they know I vote. And they know I carry some folks to poll with me. So your power is in, you guys got a lot of influence over each other. So not only go vote, but tell your friends. Like, you know, you guys do all that great Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat. Say, okay, I'm going to vote. I just went and voted early. You know, with a big, beautiful smile. Do it. You all know how to do that. Do what you do and do it well.
Amen. Amen.
Okay, here's a follow-up question from the audience. Do you think that criminals should be able to vote? Every vote matters.
My personal opinion, if they've served their time, I think they all have opportunity to vote. If you saw fit to let them come back into society, I think you should see fit that they be part of society, especially if they're taxpayers and they're contributing to society.
Just because you're incarcerated doesn't, you don't have to lose that right to vote.
That's right, that's right.
When you were born into this country, you're supposed to be guaranteed by the Constitution your right to participate, whether you're incarcerated or not. Now, these are laws that's made by people that's been elected to make those laws. They make those laws where you lose your right to vote. And by the way, if you hadn't voted in 2 cycles, and they say they don't purge you.
Yes, they do.
But what they do is they put you in what they call an inactive list. And in order to get back on the list to vote again, you've got to go and reactivate your status. All these little games that they play, the times that you can vote, all those are made because they want an advantage. You have an advantage, but we're not using it. Because if we ever come together and voted in the way that we can change just about anything that you want to change. We can have parks where there's no parks. We can have good roads where there's no roads. We can have good jobs. All that matters because you participate. And voting is a part of that, along with where you spend your money. Those are 2 powerful influences on any subject matter in your county. But you have to do it in concert. You can't do it sporadically.
Right. Mr. Carter, while they are doing that, it's a conspiracy because there is a state, and they're Googling it right now, in the Northwest where you can vote from jail. And we know that because in the 2000 Get Out to Vote, we had some people registering the folks in jail up there. It's either Montana.
State of Washington
Okay.
and Oregon and the West Coast are good at that because
Yeah, I mean, you
they
can
don't
vote
see
in
any
jail.
barriers. They don't see any barriers. If you're a citizen of the United States, just because you committed a crime and you got to pay your just due, that doesn't take away your right as a citizen. It shouldn't. But those are laws that's created by man.
Right.
And men and women that up there in the legislature, they're the one that makes the law. It's not permanent. All you have to do to change is go out and vote.
There you go.
That's all we have to do. It seems simple. But when you get 20, 25% only participating in voting, everything is difficult. That means we all have to be on the same page. Future generations of this country is going to depend on you guys. Every 5-year-old in this country today is children of color. In another 10 years, every 18-year-old and under, majority. In 2045, majority of this country will be people of color. Now, understanding that the fear that you see now with Donald Trump and other folks is because they're losing that power. They see it, so they try to make sure they can find ways to eliminate or decrease your power. That's restricting your voting, putting you in jail. We got the highest incarceration rate of any nation on the face of this earth.
That's right.
And most of them look like you.
That's right.
That's not just happened. That was planned. People had to vote for that. And the way they voted for it is because they got in a position to vote.
That's right.
How did they get in that position to vote? Did you vote last time? Are you gonna vote this time? That's how it determined.
It's all right, son.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. Can formerly incarcerated persons get their voting rights restored in Tennessee?
Yes.
Yes.
How?
You want to take it, but there's a process. But go ahead.
Let me talk about it for a minute. In Representative Larry Turner's lifetime, we had lobbied a number of years to restore voting rights to ex-felons. And we actually worked and we put the bill through about 3 times and we got it passed. Well, what happened and what it really said is that once you had paid, served your time with all paper, you could, go to your county clerk's office and apply and get your voting rights back, okay? Well, along came this famous right-wing legislature that we have, and what they attached as an amendment to that is that all of your child support payments had to be current. Well, guess what? If I've been in prison 10 or 15 years, I have not worked, and how can my child support be current? So currently, we are trying to work to try to get that off, but that's going to be difficult. Tomorrow, for about a couple of hours, we're going to talk about in our criminal justice workshop, we're going to talk about reentry strategies. We're going to talk about restoring voting rights and etc. But right now, you can get it back. It's just very difficult. Very difficult because it is very costly. We're going to even talk some about expungement of records and talk about how to go about that and etc. and who qualifies and etc. But the very best thing we can tell you all, and we've got some expert people here to talk about what we need to do and what we need to do as a community for reentry and etc. Kenneth Bonner from Johnson City is going to be on our panel. But what we need to say to you all, most of all, you all are our best and our brightest, and we need you to stay out of trouble. We need you to stay off the books. That's okay. All right. Maine and Vermont. In those 2 states, you never lose your voting rights. You can vote from jail. Well, now that ought to tell us something. Because there's not many folks, I've been to both states, not many folks look like me up there, right? So that says when we are not in the equation, it does make a difference. It does make a difference. We want to be frank with you because, I tell you like I tell my sons and grandsons, I want you to be ready for the real world. And this is what the real world is all about. They never lose their voting rights.
Okay, we're gonna bring you back around. Lieutenant Curry, do you see the delivery of policing services changing in the future?
Yes, I do. First of all, because of social media and everything is public and you get instant scene time of what's happening, and you can no longer police the way you used to police. There's so many laws that govern you on what you do, and the community is not tolerating insufficient and brutality, all these type things that once happened with police departments. So I do see a change, and I think community policing is going to be the way of our entire society, and I think it should be, because I think if we all work together, you know, and try to come up with good, common solutions to our problem, it will make our society better. And I tell my officers, they keep asking this question: where are the parents? Where are the parents? Where are the fathers? Where are the fathers? Single parent households and all this stuff. And I go back to slavery. During that time, just about all households were single parents. They sold men into slavery, and they went da. But it was that plantation, those uncles and folks there stood in the gap and raised those children so they would be productive people where they could be productive on the plantation. So we need to serve as surrogate parents, all of us.
That's right.
And there were days when the neighbor could correct you and gave you wisdom, not the coach, the teacher, and all that. And don't buy into this stuff. Where's the parent? You're the parent. We're all surrogate parents. So, and I see the police department, I mean, we're in the community all day. While mom at work, why can't you go to school and check on Johnny? And I said it real briefly. We just created what we call the Youth Crime Watch program. We got 25 core groups of students that do the planning and come up with solutions on how they can make their schools safer and in their communities safer. And as of now, over 1 year, we got 1,000 core group of students in about 30 schools now that are coming up with ideas and being part of solving crimes and making their schools and community safer. So and it's supported by the police officer, but it's actually ran by the youth. And last year, we had so many homicides, and people don't realize it. Over 70% of those high-profile crimes you saw in the news were solved by those children in our Youth Crime Watch program. So that's police and community, and especially you. And I charge, I won't get long with it, but I think it's very important. I charge the older people you see every time you go. I get so sick every time I go to a neighborhood meeting, association meeting, number of old folk there. I don't see no young folk. And then young folks are cutting all bright ideas. This is the only generation where I've seen where the young folks are actually smarter than the adults. They are. And because of Facebook and so much is happening all around the world, but we need to incorporate those ideas so we can work together. So right now, you will see an example of police and youth working together and changing the culture of policing. And you'll see that right here in Memphis very, very, very soon.
Excellent.
So, thank you. Can I get someone from the audience, a student maybe, to talk about how they feel about police officers and all of it? Jordan? Stand up. Yes.
Identify yourself. Tell us who you are. Tell us who you are and what school you're from.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Jordan Alexander Taylor. I'm a student at Cordova Christian Brothers University. You said my feelings towards police officers and what's been going on. Basically, what I want to say is what my grandmother had told me. Not every cop is bad, but not every African American is good. Now, in the news today, we've seen that unarmed African American men get shot, and that's not cool. I mean, I understand for police, typically, when the officer tells you to do something, you do it, because you want to live to see your family,
That's
you want
right.
to live to tell the tale.
Right.
However, you know, in those cases, you know, the guys are probably like trying to get their wallets and stuff, or trying to reach for it. Cop may have saw that and just said, and it just like, oh, he's got a gun. During the summer with the Alton Sterling one, he was on the ground, and from the video, he's on the ground. You know, you don't really see him going for anything. They're both on him, and you know, they shoot him twice or whatever. And after that, you realize after the fact, something was in his pocket, but it was after the fact. He wasn't even trying to like go for it. Now, again, my thing is, you know, officers and people too, they're trying to see their family too. But I mean, you know, like everything, I feel personally that like, and this is just coming from me, not my opinion, I feel personally like you don't have to go for the gun. And if you're within distance to tase or like use the baton, then I would say go with that. I mean, I don't know if you guys are taught hand-to-hand combat, but like, but I mean, like that's from my personal opinion. I understand from the officer's point of view, especially from what my father and my uncle have told me. Just do what they say. Yes sir, no sir. You know, because at the end of the day, you're just trying to see mom, dad. If they're being unruly, let them be unruly. You can live to tell the tale after they're done.
All right. That's right. Excellent. All right.
How y'all doing? My name is Julian Robinson from Tennessee State University. I'm a junior. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. Like we have like a lot of issues with like police brutality there. My father, he actually covered the Freddie Gray trial. He's a reporter. Something that came up a lot. And, like, I kind of understand it, but I really don't. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's called the Blue Wall of Silence.
Yeah.
It's basically saying that if you don't know about it, that if you, I guess, try to stand up, if you're an officer and you try to stand up to like other officers about injustices, like it basically like blackball you, and like you really like you can't really do anything about that. So like, what are you guys doing to break down that blue wall of silence and things like that in police departments?
That's all right.
Very good question from both of you gentlemen. I experienced, if you want to call that blackball thing, keep in mind, I had gotten promoted, but I filed a federal lawsuit preventing